Richard Ghormley Eberhart was born on April 5, 1904, in Austin, Minnesota, in the United States of America. He grew up on a 50-acre estate called Burr Oaks, which has since been partitioned into hundreds of residential lots. He published a volume of poetry called Burr Oaks in 1947, and many of his poems reflect his youth in rural America. Eberhart began college at the University of Minnesota, but following his mother's death from cancer in 1921, the event which prompted him to begin writing poetry, he transferred to Dartmouth College. After graduation he worked as a ship's hand, among other jobs, then studied at St. John's College, Cambridge, where I. Richards encouraged him to continue writing poetry, and where he took a further degree. After serving as private tutor to the son of King Prajathipok of Siam, now Thailand, from 1931 to 1932, Eberhart pursued graduate study for a year at Harvard University. During his time there, he met T.S. Eliot. His first book of poetry, A Bravery of Earth, was published in London in 1930. It reflected his experiences in Cambridge and his experience as a ship's hand. Reading the Spirit, published in 1937, contains one of his best-known poems, The Groundhog. He taught for 8 years at the St. Mark's School, from 1933 to 1941, where Robert Lowell was one of his students. In 1941 he married Helen Butcher. They had 2 children. During World War II, he held the rank of lieutenant commander and served in the U.S. Naval Reserve. This experience led him to write another of his most celebrated poems, The Fury of Aerial Bombardment. In 1945, Eberhart published Poems New and Selected, containing The Fury of Aerial Bombardment, and other poems written during his service including Damneck Virginia, and World War. He also edited War and the Poet, an anthology of poetry expressing man's reactions to the present, claiming to be the first collection of poems based on war. After the war, he worked for 6 years for his wife's family's floor wax company, the Butcher Polish Company. Burr Oaks was his first work published post-war in 1947, followed by Brotherhood of Men in 1949. In 1950, he was a founder of the Poets Theatre in Cambridge, Massachusetts. From the early 1950s until his retirement, he dedicated himself to writing poems and teaching at institutions of higher education, including the University of Washington, Brown University, Swarthmore College, Tufts University, Trinity College, the University of Connecticut, Columbia University, the University of Cincinnati, the University of Florida, Wheaton College, St. Mark's School, Princeton University and Dartmouth College. He taught for 30 years at Dartmouth as professor of English and poet in residence, where he was known for his encouragement of young poets. Eberhart published Undercliff, Poems 1946 to 1953, containing Fragment of New York, in 1953. Eberhart also wrote a number of dramatic works in the 1950s and early 1960s which were performed regionally. These works included The Apparition, The Visionary Farms, Triptych, The Mad Musicians, and Devils and Angels. In 1962, these works were published as collected verse works. Eberhart was sent to San Francisco by the New York Times to report on the beat poetry scene. Eberhart wrote a piece published in the September 2, 1956, New York Times Book Review entitled, West Coast Rhythms, that helped call national attention to the Beat generation, and especially to Allen Ginsberg as the author of Howl, which he called the most remarkable poem of the young group. Ginsberg credited Eberhart's article with breaking the ice for the Beats in regard to getting them published. President Dwight Eisenhower appointed Eberhart a member of the Advisory Committee on the Arts for the National Cultural Center in 1959. He was also Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry to the Library of Congress for 1959 to 1961, and was awarded a Bollingen Prize in 1962. He was New Hampshire's poet laureate from 1979 to 1984, and was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Letters in 1982. He also won the Shelley Memorial Award, the Harriet Monroe Memorial Award, and the Frost Medal from the Poetry Society of America. In her memoir, Poetic License, Eberhart's daughter Gretchen Turrington accused him of sexual abuse. He died on June 9, 2005, in Hanover, New Hampshire, in the United States. He was 101 years old.